Good Thursday evening. Thanks for joining us this evening. We're thrilled to have you participate in what I believe will be a great conversation. In our SMB, Silicon Slopes SMB series this evening, we've entitled this Open for Business, Now What? A Framework for Business Changes. We're all going through this COVID-19 environment. We're a couple of months into it, and I think we're starting to get beyond this moment where we are just fighting for survival. We're starting to think about, what does the future of our business look like? How have trends changed in the market, with competition, with our customer? What does that mean in terms of what we do with our business today and how we think about medium to long-term shifts? We've got an incredible panel. As opposed to reading the bios, which I typically do, I'm going to say a couple of things about each of the panelists. Let me start with the moderator. Jason Alliger runs consumer insights at Traeger Grills. He's very involved in strategy, consumer behavior, pricing. We call him the professor because he is also an adjunct professor at BYU. The guy is smart as could be and is an incredible contributor, wise beyond his years, and I can't wait to see how Jason manages this panel discussion. Amelia Wilcox is the founder and CEO of Zenovate, formerly Incorporate Massage, which provides employees stress management tools. Really with the intent to improve the well-being of companies, of teams. She's won all sorts of awards as an entrepreneur. I have enjoyed getting to know Amelia over the last handful of years. I've always found her to be thoughtful and smart, incredibly hungry to build her business, and very interested to ask the right questions. Thank you for joining us, Amelia. Thrilled to have you. Andrew Smith, good friend, co-founder of Four Foods Group, which is one of the largest restaurant operators in Utah. He was formerly a tech entrepreneur turned restaurateur. He has been an entrepreneur for the past couple of decades. What I enjoy the most about Andrew is his involvement in the community. He does a lot of good. I run into it and see it behind the scenes. Good guy, good entrepreneur, successful businessman, and I'm happy to have him with us. Davis Smith is the founder and CEO of Cotopaxi. I have come to know Davis as a board member at Cotopaxi, and Davis has made an adventure out of me. Cotopaxi has built one of the best cultures that I have seen in any business, and I get a chance to see it behind the scenes, but it's a culture that values people, that stands for impact. It's about doing good, leaving goodness wherever it goes, whether it be with their partners, their suppliers, their customers, and he is just a good dude. Davis has taken me on adventures in the Amazon, climbing mountains in Mexico, trekking around the Caribbean with spears and water and camping gear. And that guy is as authentic as he is a good human being and entrepreneur. Davis, thanks for joining us. Lastly, James Shirey. James is a partner at the Cicero Group. He leads the strategy practice and really focuses on transformation engagements with Fortune 500 organizations. Prior to Cicero, he has been an executive in a venture-backed business and also led numerous engagements as he spent 5 years at McKinsey & Company. He's been here in Salt Lake for 6 years. We at Traeger have partnered with Cisco on a number of engagements. I know James is a bright guy, and they are a great firm, and we've enjoyed our association with them. So, with that, I'm excited to turn the conversation over to Jason Alliger for a great conversation, and just want to just let those of you know who are tuning in. We would love for this to be a high level of engagement. Please, comments, questions on YouTube. We'll be mining them and sharing them with Jason. So please be as active as you'd like to be. Jason.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeremy. I'm really excited to be here with you all. I realize it's a troubling time for many, and believe this panel will introduce some fantastic solutions, for you and your business. It's been incredibly inspiring meeting them and talking with them as well, and I think all in attendance will feel the same. At Traeger, Jeremy kind of mentioned, I track consumer trends and behaviors, and I've interviewed hundreds of people on grilling, moderated tons of focus groups, but I can say this might be the most meaningful project I've hosted. And thinking through the topic at hand and kind of the inner professor in me, I thought I'd kick us off by sharing a framework. And this is something that I developed with the panelists here. We thought it'd be helpful to kind of share this business recovery model. So what you're looking at, it's a 2x2 matrix where, on this axis, it plots investment, right? So maybe your business, you got some PPP loan money, maybe you have some capital that you've already raised, or you have other cash in the bank or other things. So investment could be a number of things. And here at the bottom, you have recovery time, right? So, this could be recovery time for COVID. This could be recovery time when your customers start buying in full again, right? This it's a pretty versatile matrix in this way. And then if you look at it, right, so for example here, if your investment is low, let's suppose you don't have a lot of capital to invest, but you also assume the recovery time will be fairly low, then as a business leader, you should just work on cost management activities to try to best manage your business. But if you don't have a lot of capital or funds and believe the recovery time will be high, then you need to start thinking through some bigger operating model shifts so your business can be viable. Moving up, assuming the recovery time is low, but investment is high, right? So maybe you have a lot of cash or other assets, and the recovery time is going to be fairly quick, or maybe you're already feeling it. This is the time to be investing. And then, in the last category, I believe the recovery time is high, but you do have, a way to invest in your business, then you should be making some bigger changes. Something really unique with this panel is, they really cover all four of these quadrants. And I think as you think about your business, you can kind of see where you fit. And hopefully this is at least informative with where you might consider going, or shifts that you might consider making. The last thing that I'll point out is here on the right are kind of what I call critical questions, right? So they're questions that you should be asking yourself as you go through this process, right? So will my spending bring a return in the short term? Are other companies investing? And I even put in here, red versus blue ocean. Are you creating a category or playing into a category that's less competitive? Or are you entering, which would be a blue ocean, or are you entering more of a red ocean that's more competitive, and it might be harder for you to make true profits in the long run? So, those might be some questions you should be asking yourself. And then, on the flip side too, as you think about the recovery period, what's going to happen? What businesses are relevant? What are consumers and customers doing? So anyways, and we might reference this matrix throughout our panel discussion today. So with that, you've definitely heard enough from me. So let's hear from our panelists who have really transformed their business. And so the first question I have for the panelists is, what's changed in your business? What short-term or long-term changes have you made? Maybe Amelia, let's have you kick it off. I know your business has undergone quite a transformation.
Yeah, so for us, basically, I mean, what Incorporate Massage did before the rebrand is we did massage services for businesses. So companies would hire us to come in and massage their employees at work. And there's like two big problems with what COVID has done to our space is that nobody's going to work and you're not allowed to touch anyone. so so yeah, we've got the remote workers, we got nobody being allowed to do any kind of touch. There's definitely a huge decline in leads. Typically, this week is one of our biggest weeks of the entire year because it's Nurses Week and we have contracts with hospitals and people all over the country are bringing us in to massage the nurses. And it's just it's not possible right now. So for us, you know, we also sat down with a lot of our clients and we just said, you know, you're working in a new remote landscape. Like, what are your pains? And we really tried to figure out where we could add value. And we saw a lot of our clients were needing new ways to be able to manage employee stress and manage employee engagement, improve morale and things like that. It's just a whole new landscape for them as far as like, they don't have that water cooler interaction where they can like check in and see how Sally in accounting's feeling today or anything like that. So they were feeling really blind. So for us, you know, we were already looking at doing other types of wellness services for our clients. We get requests for yoga and meditation, all that stuff was already on the roadmap. So we were already planning on rebranding at some point to be able to offer more than just massage. But definitely like the virtual services was definitely the brand new part that we hadn't previously considered. And so we tried to look at what we had and what our clients needed and find a place where they could intersect.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. That's a pretty huge pivot there to go from giving massages to now being a basically virtual company. Yeah. Uh, Davis, I know you've also made some pretty big business changes. You want to tell us more about that?
Yeah, happy to. So first of all, I'll say like kind of where we were at. You know, in the beginning of the year, we came off a really great 2019 where we'd close to doubled our revenues over the previous year. We were feeling really positive about 2020, and the first couple months were really great for us. And the week that everything started unraveling here in the U.S., I was actually in Ecuador, where I grew up, and where the name Cotopaxi comes from. And I was working with some of our nonprofit partners, and I was supposed to be there for a little over a week. 3 days in, I realized I needed to get back to the U.S. as quickly as possible. I took a red-eye flight, got here back in Utah on an early Friday morning. That Friday, we decided we were going to close our office. I think that was like March 12th or something. And so we closed our office. That weekend, we closed our retail stores. And by Monday, I was informing our team that we were going to be reducing salaries across almost all the team. And it was like the shift from like feeling really positive to feeling like the whole world has collapsed around us was really sharp. And I'm sure a lot of people on this call have remember feeling the same way. You know, for us, we're an e-commerce business first, but we also have physical retail stores which are closed. We sell our product through 500 or 600 other retailers like REI; those are all closed. We sell product to other corporations, like if they have a big event, they might order a bunch of bags, or if they have, they might buy their entire team jackets or backpacks. That business is completely gone. And then we have these events called Questival, these 24-hour adventure races. Those are obviously all canceled, and so we had a lot of reasons to be, and have a lot of reasons to be very scared and to be very concerned. But we started, and I won't go into all the details because I think some of the other questions we're going to address later in this conversation, I can hit on some of these things. But I think the biggest change that I've seen has actually been in our team itself. This crisis awakened something inside of me as a CEO and inside of my team as we've rallied together and found innovative ways to go to keep our business going and to stay relevant and to be able to fulfill our mission of doing good and giving back. And we've been able to do that in some really unique ways by rallying the team really around 3 causes, which was number 1, cost cutting, number 2, brand building activities, and 3, revenue driving activities. And so we all tried to innovate around those three areas. And You know, at the end of the day, 2 months in, like, our business is different, and you know, it's been painful, but at the same time, I've never been happier. I've never felt more proud. I've never felt more connected to my own team. And frankly, I'm a better CEO today than I was 2 months ago because of this. And so it's been a really interesting time to be running a business.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and neat that you find the silver lining in it too, right? With the effect, the positive effect on your team, you know, despite reducing salaries and going through this tough period. So that's great. Thanks for sharing that. Let's you know, another interesting point of view would be Andrew. I mean, Andrew, you're running tons of restaurants. What's this? What's changed in your world?
You know, nothing is changing our world. Everything's perfect for the restaurant business. It's wonderful. We're open. No, I would share what Davis and Amelia just said, that the world felt like it fell off a cliff literally in a week's time. We actually around here call it Rudy Day. If everybody remembers watching TV and when it came up that Rudy had COVID, it literally felt like after that, everything accelerated and things started closing and the NBA shut down and then events started shutting down. It was absolutely crazy to see how fast things went. So we literally demark it as Rudy Day, and then moving forward, how we reacted. The world came to an end at that time. And what changed mostly is that panic set in. I think we all felt nervous, scared. We didn't know what was going to happen next. We were living kind of by the minute, by the hour. And because of that, as a CEO, we all run businesses with these plans for, you know, month, quarter, year. We don't run a business per hour. And I literally feel like the whole world shifted to, what the heck am I going to do next hour? Because people are coming to me asking me for answers. And this is not something that any of us can plan for. There's no way to plan for this. There's no playbook. And so you're literally making it up as you go. And I think this is the only time, though, too, I would say that people that kind of look at any of us and say, I want to be that guy or that girl. I don't think anybody wants to be in this role during a pandemic. It was the hardest experience I've had. And I lived through the 2000 and 2008 crash with businesses that I owned. That was elementary school compared to this. This is like Ivy League stuff now that we're dealing with. In the restaurant business, though, talking specifically about our industry and then hospitality, because I understand both. It's been ravaged. I mean, obviously, it's an essential business. People continue to think that we have to stay open. You know, we could have closed. And many times we thought it'd probably be easier if we just shut our doors and went home and licked our wounds, because staying open's tough. And what had changed is that every single minute of the day or every hour, we would be getting new rules by the health department. And the health department would say, this is now how we have to operate your business. And I literally had to sit down with the team 2, 3, 4 times a day and say, here are the new rules. Now we have to go out and communicate it with all of our senior management and all thousands of employees we have to comply with health department guidelines. It was almost impossible, but we had to shift. And so every single day for about a week and a half, we just saw sales drop. And it's depressing. You lay in bed looking at the ceiling going, when's it going to end? Like, what's the bottom of this? And there was a meeting that I was sitting in with my partner, Greg Warnock, and then my entire team. And we said, okay, what do we do? Do we sit here and continue to let this happen to us? And we're going to be victims of this, or are we going to try to fight back and thrive? And so what we decided to do is figure out strategies around keeping our people safe, keeping our guests safe, which is really important. And then, of course, serving others in the community, because the shock of the pandemic has hurt so many. And we've seen not only the frontline responders that had to work with it, but also those that are unemployed now too. Those are the people that are being beat up the most. And so that's really what we've focused and kind of organized ourselves around, are those 3 things. I'm going to steal one thing that Davis said, and then I'm going to stop talking. But we also felt like what has changed for the long term, and really what we've seen over the short term, is that we've galvanized as a team. It's absolutely galvanized the team to where people are more loyal. They're enjoying work more. They're more excited about the future than ever before. And we're proud of that. We're proud of going through such a tough time, but also feeling the excitement of what the future brings.
Awesome. Well,
Jason, I think you're paused.
Yeah, I think, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
All right. Let me kick off the next question, and then I'll be back in a minute. But let's talk next about, and first of all, I'll say, I think we all remember Rudy Day. What a crazy day. I remember going to Costco that night. It was just mayhem. And I love how your team rallied together. And just, I think it's just so complicated being told how to run your business from, the health department or other people. So neat how you kind of pivoted there. Let's kick off this next question with, what challenges and opportunities has this presented for your company? So maybe let's kick it off with James, and then go to Andrew and then Amelia there.
Thanks. So this has presented a range of challenges for my business. We're in the management consulting space, and so we serve a wide range of clients. And it's a blessing and a curse. The blessing is that we have a mix of effects for our clients, but the challenge is that we have just numerous different client needs that we need to try and serve on a regular basis. And so each of those clients is attacking, as we've heard today from some of the others on the panel, is attacking this problem in a different way and has different unique challenges for their own client base. And our goal as a management consulting firm is to really put ourselves in the position of our clients and identify ways in which we can be a value-added thought partner to help them navigate these difficult times. And so that presents a unique opportunity to say, sort of industry by industry that we serve, what do we believe are some of the biggest challenges that they're facing? And of those challenges, which ones are we positioned as a partner to best support them in addressing those needs? And that gives us then the opportunity to maintain just an open dialogue with our clients around a slate of potential opportunities that outside in we're seeing that may be viable for that particular client. And then ultimately just adding to that, listening, just really doubling down on listening to our clients and some of the pains that they're experiencing, and just being a kind of a candid thought partner with them to think through strategically how they might address some of the challenges that they're facing. So I think, despite the proliferation of different ways to handle this for some of our different clients, it really does present a tremendous opportunity to get much closer to our clients, and to really roll up our sleeves and work with them to solve the problem.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that, James. Andrew, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that the challenges that this was presented for our industry as a whole, hospitality, is that we've been reset to what the new norm is. The new norm is going to be lower levels of sales. It's going to be a different makeup within each of the actual physical locations. And one of the things that I think that we all don't want to say, but is really out there, and you feel this way when you're walking around in the community that you're in, is that trust has been broken. And what I mean by that is, I don't know if I can trust the person I'm talking to have this invisible virus that could get me and my family sick. And because this trust is broken, we all have to organize ourselves as business leaders as how do we actually do our service or provide our service or our product in a way that can rebuild that trust, that it's going to be safe. And I think that we have been squarely in the middle of that, because for a long time people were like, can I actually go and eat at a restaurant or go to the grocery store and get that food and be safe? Can I buy a retail product from Amazon and have it come to my home, and is it going to give me COVID? And that education is something that all of us are going to have to do, is we're going to have to educate our guests to rebuild that trust so that we can, of course, get back to pre-pandemic revenue levels. So that's something that we're focused on of, how do we get volumes back up? How do we do it more productive and more efficient? But how do we rebuild that trust?
Yeah, totally. And it's neat that you identified that kind of underlying issue, right? Because I totally agree. You need to gain that trust, and it's a hard thing to basically gain back, right? Amelia, I know your industry got hit pretty hard. What kind of challenges has that presented to you?
Yeah, our industry got hit hard and fast, which was a challenge, but also a silver lining that we kind of shut down really fast right before a lot of other industries were shutting down, because we saw those signs a lot sooner than everybody else because we're in a high touch space. So we furloughed our entire team as soon as we saw everything starting to shut down. We just went down to we had one person just managing all the cancellations as they just came in, which, I mean, I'll echo what Andrew said earlier too, is one of the most emotionally painful things to watch our best quarter ever on this intense trajectory of growth just go down to nothing in the course of 10 days. And I was like, wow, leads have completely stopped coming in. And then the only thing we were doing on our side was just managing cancellations. And at first they were all rescheduling for the next month. People were like, is this going to be a 1 week thing? Or is this, people didn't know. They knew they couldn't get massage right now, but they weren't sure. So people were rescheduling. And then those reschedules turned into cancellations and things like that. So the challenge is, we're just that there is no opportunities for us to do massage right now. And so we just had to look at what we had in front of us. So our resources, we have 1,200 practitioners that work for us all over the US. And so we wanted to kind of understand what can we do with what we already have and look for opportunities in that space. And so we started reaching out to our massage therapists and asking them what other things they could do. So we put together this list of a whole bunch of people could also do yoga, and they could also do meditation. They could also do nutrition. They could also do fitness. And we built out six different services that we could provide virtually. We even can provide massage instruction virtually, where people can learn how to massage, the spot in your shoulder when you're used to getting your massages at work every Monday, or going to, Massage Envy once a month or something like that. All of a sudden, nobody had access to any of that anywhere. You just couldn't get a massage unless somebody in your household knew how to give you one. And so we knew we could fill that need. And that was an opportunity for us to do something that's never really been done before. Massage has never been able to be given virtually. So I think that's a really cool opportunity. We've been having fun with that. And we've also seen other companies in the general wellness space have done really well with their B2C models in mental health and meditation. You look at companies like Headspace and other things where people are doing really well with the pre-recorded content or live face-to-face kind of interaction virtually. And so we looked at some of those models and we saw huge opportunities for us where our focus has always been stress management. So even our mission is creating stress-free experiences for our clients and opportunities for our practitioners. And so even with the rebrand, we didn't have to change our mission statement at all. It was just okay, we used to just do the massage piece of stress management. How can we grow that? So we saw a huge opportunity, especially talking to our clients just with the new challenges that they were facing around engagement, morale, and just the incredible amount of stress that people have when they're trying to work from home and they're trying to homeschool their kids and they're screaming in the other room. I mean, I think people in general are dealing with unprecedented levels of stress that they've never had before. Not even talking about where is my next paycheck coming from, or am I going to have a job in 2 weeks? I mean, there's just so many things stacked up. So I think there's a need in the market that's bigger than it's ever been before. And we're in the right position to be able to provide that as a benefit through employers. So I think those are our opportunities.
Well, that's great. Amelia, I want to ask you, so you kind of touched on this with how your team kind of looked at your mission statement to understand what you should do. Can you kind of tell us more about that?
Yeah. So initially when we shut everything down, there was just what I would call a grieving period where basically everyone was super just depressed and everything we spent all this time building is crumbling in front of us. And so we took a couple days to grieve. And then as a leadership team, we just sat down and we were okay, who are we? It's literally that scene in Zoolander where he's who am I? And I was playing in my mind and I was okay, who are we? What do we stand for? Why do our clients hire us? Okay, they hire us because they want to provide some sort of stress relief to their employees. And that's even in our mission statement. It's always been we want to be the easiest and the most stress-free, because massage is stress-free. We shouldn't be giving it to clients in a way that causes all the stress. Other companies in our space, it'll be the receptionist is managing the sign-up sheet, right? We do all of that through our platform. And so we just really thought about that. We're okay, stress management is really what we do and who we are. And once we started down that thought process, that's when we were like, okay, well, what other services in that space can we offer, and how can we offer them virtually? And we just took that information in, built out some lists. We started with 6 practitioners. We have 13 now, and they're all working for us 20 to 40 hours a week. But yeah, that was kind of our process there.
Well, that's great. It's neat what happens when you kind of go back to your roots and kind of see what you stand for, and then kind of see where you can play in this, very upside down world, right? So thanks for that.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we've been talking a little bit about, pivots that companies have made. I am curious for this group, what organizations or what people have kind of been role models for you during this? Who have you been looking at, and what have you been doing? Davis, let's hear from you first. What have you been doing? Who have you been following?
Yeah, I think this has been one of the silver linings of this experience as well, is the ability to reconnect with friends and other leaders. And I remember in undergrad reading a book called The E-Myth Revisited, which probably a lot of entrepreneurs have read. And it's been long enough now, sadly, that I don't remember the entire book, but I do remember one part of this where the founder was like stuck in her business, and she was like really obsessed. I think it was like with pies, and she was like loved this business at first, but at some point was like stuck inside the business instead of working on the business. She was working in it. And I think one of the lessons that I think this has helped me learn as well is that you can't just always work within your community. You have to work on your community. Like if you've spent the last several years engaged in your community, engaged with other founders and other CEOs and other business owners, then like when a time like this happens, like you have these resources to go back to. And so for me, I've spent a bunch of the last 2 months connecting with other leaders and learning from them and asking them what's working for them and what challenges are they seeing, and how are they predicting the next few months are going to look, and talking to other CEOs of businesses similar to ours to try to understand. And I think some of the companies that stand out for me are obviously Traeger has done just a phenomenal job, with their business. I love, seeing Jeremy's office get converted to like a recording studio, and just like really fun to see how that change has happened. I think another great example is from a classmate of mine from business school that started a company called Allbirds, a shoe company that's built on sustainability. And they, in the first week or two of the crisis, they gave a pair of Allbirds to anyone that was like frontline healthcare workers. They gave away 5 million shoes. And that ended up being, talking to Joey, the CEO, like this ended up being like a really meaningful part of their business in the last 2 months, was like the awareness that they drew from this community, and the support that they got, and the amount of people that came on their site ended up buying product as well. And so I've loved seeing how their businesses and Traeger and Allbirds and a bunch of others have responded during this time. Everyone's responded in different, unique ways that have fit their business, which has been fun to watch.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's been fun being at Traeger, seeing how it's transitioned. But I mean, I think we've all seen in the headlines so many interesting companies doing different things. So yeah, that's great. James, I know when you and I were talking before, we were talking about kind of what all these companies are doing. You want to talk with us about that?
Sure. Some of the things that I saw early on that I was excited about was how the tech industry as a whole has embraced their role as both an influencer and as a contributor in society. So specifically, if you look at things like Facebook and Twitter, who normally are very platform focused and very content agnostic, they very early on recognized the severity and the importance of conveying quality information to the public, and specifically starting to promote things like the CDC, the World Health Organization, and others above some of the other kind of noise and content that you might see out there. And I think that they're, and then of course closely followed by Google in that same role. And so I think that each of them, as sort of these tech behemoths, recognized their tremendous influence in society, both in the US and globally, and began to realize that they actually really can play a material role in influencing consumer and individual behavior to better the outcomes on COVID. Moving forward, I think that they've also shown both a strong willingness to be very forward thinking and sort of set the tempo for allowing employees to work from home and being very accommodating to employees on the health side. And I think that that has enabled many other organizations to sort of point to that and say, well, wait, that's kind of what they're doing. Is that appropriate for my organization as well? And so they're pretty early in that process as well. And then of course, they've also been very generous, both financially and in terms of specifically personal protective gear and other areas to help others. And so what we've taken away from that at Cicero is that, we've been continually evaluating ways that we can be a positive influence in our local market. And I know that our CEO, Trent Coffin, has been actively involved in, with Jeremy and others on Skill Up Utah, which is going to be focused on helping folks that are displaced workers to improve their opportunities to get reemployed coming out of this crisis. And so that's something that I know is one of the examples for kind of a local effort to really focus on the Utah market to help folks improve their outcomes post-COVID.
Totally. Yeah. No, thanks for that, James. I guess, for you as a Utah business leader, so you're following these big companies and then trying to implement it for your company. What would you recommend for other Utah business leaders? What should they be doing, or what advice do you have?
Yeah, I would just say continue to identify specifically ways that you can make a difference. And you can't always change the world, but look at the scope that your business influences, whether it's the restaurant industry, whether it's personal protective gear, whether it's de-stressing folks, as we've heard from Amelia. We have a pretty broad representation on this call, but there are many, many ways in which business owners, hopefully many on this that are seeing this webcast, are impacting the day-to-day lives of individuals that are affected by this. And so the thinking is that, yes, you want to be navigating this from a business standpoint and strategically from a business standpoint, but I think that those customers are also going to look back and kind of judge you on how did you handle it from a community standpoint, from an ethical standpoint, and how have you navigated this? And I think that to the extent that your business allows, if you can find ways to engage with your community and with individuals that are kind of in your own ecosystem, I think that can make a real difference on the ground.
Totally. No, that's fantastic advice. And yeah, it's something that should be strongly considered, right? What's your sphere of influence, and where can you do good? I wanted to ask Andrew here, what companies or what organizations have been your role models? What kind of restaurants or other groups are doing this well in your category?
Yeah, I think in our category, one of the nationals, Chipotle, has probably done one of the best. They've been very forthcoming on how they're addressing the COVID nightmare, what they're doing to educate the guests on approaching them through different touchless contact points to get their food. They've marketed around, feeling safe to do so, and that the future is bright. And I've liked them as kind of the leader out there, saying that the world's going to be okay, and we're here to try to help that get that point to that point. Dutch Brothers has been good. They're very much so about culture and employees, and we can all learn a little bit from that. They have this cult-like following, but they have like a cult-like employee base as well. So I'm very impressed with Dutch Brothers. Here locally though, I still have a lot of friends in the tech arena because I've been in that for a long time. And I've got to be honest, I was super impressed here locally too, because when I was in tech, we didn't have Silicon Slopes. We didn't have everybody pulling together and leaning on each other like they do now. I thought that Brock over at Lendio did an unbelievable job jumping in and helping with the PPP process, because that is a tough process and people were really suffering trying to figure that out. As well as the team over at Divvy. They did an unbelievable job, and I was very impressed with how fast they jumped on that, developed something that made it easier. Impressed there. Our good friends, Josh James at Domo and Ryan Smith at Qualtrics to do Test Utah. That was something that most states couldn't even assemble around, and they did that. And I looked at that as a very much so a leadership position. And to be honest with you, I was honored to have the opportunity to dig into and understand better Davis Smith and Cotopaxi, as he was one of the finalists in the EY program, and watching his leadership of converting Cotopaxi to being something that everybody could get behind, be a little bit excited about, during the really downtime that we've been in. I've got one Utah shirts all over my house now. I feel like every time we're doing laundry, we got those damn things everywhere. And so I just think that he's got this great idea and vision on how to help the community and be back involved and help fight this, but in a positive way. And so I think Cotopaxi's done a fantastic job as well. And then of course we have to say that Traeger's done a great job because we're all cooking on his stupid grills all the time now because we're all home cooking and we're not out at my restaurants eating food. So I would say Jeremy's done a great job with Traeger for sure.
Funny. Hey,
and I love my Traeger, by the way. I just want to make sure that's very clear.
Davis, do you have any response to that?
Like specifically about Cotopaxi or about like in general, like these?
With kind of your approach with, One Utah and some of those other things that you've been doing?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is one of the things that I think we all learn in life is that, when we're inwardly focused, life isn't that exciting and it isn't that fulfilling. And that's what I think has really made this last 2 months really special for us is, we've experienced a bit of pain ourselves. We've raised about $250,000 over the last 2 months for our community, for COVID response and helping those that are, especially some of the most vulnerable parts of our community, refugees and others. And that makes it just so fulfilling. And thank you, Andrew. That was really nice of you to mention us, especially in a group of such great businesses.
Well, I'm just looking for some free One Utah shirts now. That's why I said that. I'm just kidding.
Great. Okay. So thanks, guys. I think everybody here attending feels warm and fuzzy now. Hopefully everybody's gotten One Utah shirts. Let's talk a little bit more about, what pivots or changes your companies are either making or considering. And then, as a follow-up question after this is like, literally, how are you going throughout this process? I think a lot of us just want to know, how are you making these decisions? Let's kick it over to Amelia. What, with massage likely never coming back, what's the, or at least not coming back for the short term, what's the plan?
Yeah, so I mean, our plan is to figure out how to add value to our client base or new customers that fit that same model, which is just companies that care about their employee well-being, which I hope is all companies. But specifically, we really focus on technology, marketing, or manufacturing, and like call centers, places with high turnover that are looking for ways to like keep their team, reduce turnover. So our board was really animate with us. In fact, they had to come back to me probably about 10 times every time I was trying to forecast out this like totally unimaginable future that there's really no way to predict at all. And they were like, no, do not expect massage to come back in 4 weeks. No, not 8 weeks, like further. So basically, I finally figured out what they were looking for was like, just build it out as if massage may never come back. Like, how are you going to keep the business afloat? How are you going to still, serve your clients? I mean, we've got hundreds and hundreds of clients on contract with us where we come into their office on a regular basis. And those people like can't have services, And so we had to figure out a way. That was our first priority, was like, how do we take care of the people that were contracted to take care of them and their staff? And so it was just a lot of phone calls, a lot of conversations, a lot of asking questions, getting feedback, showing people what we built, going back and changing it, things like that, just trying to learn as fast as we can because it's just everything's so brand new. So yeah, I mean, what we were trying to do was just like, how do we basically launch something new that can live in the virtual world and still integrate with our existing business as soon as massage comes back? And so that was, I joke with our team. I was talking to them this morning and I was just like, guys, what we did is super hard. It was like multiple 100-hour work weeks to get all this stuff off the ground as fast as we could. And it's even harder because it's not like we still have a business. Like we still have, this is our core massage side of the business. And then like when that comes back, how's that affect all of our processes? How does that affect, just everything? So, for us, we just decided to just focus really heavy into stress management. I did a lot of research. I saw that, stress management is something that employers are Googling all the time, and there's not a lot of solutions that exist out there right now. And it was perfectly in line with what we were doing. We played with like employee wellness as the focus, or, different things, but it really came down to stress because it matched our mission, as I already mentioned. So for us, it's just like the on-site side of the business, which historically has just been massage, will also include all of our other services that we're already offering virtually. So we'll be doing, yoga and meditation and things like that. So it's the changes and pivots we're making is just like permanently expanding the amount of services that we're offering, and then being able to offer them on site when that's a thing again, and then virtually in the meantime. And then when the world comes back, we have both. So that's kind of what we're planning on.
That's remarkable, because once again, before this, you just did on-site massages, right? So it's like, I feel like I have to keep remembering this. Like you didn't have this before, but now you do. So anyways, it's just remarkable. James, I'm interested to get your point of view. What pivots or changes is your organization kind of making through all this?
Sure. One of the biggest things that we focused on, back to that theme of putting kind of that, and I think Amelia addressed this in thinking about what can she do to better serve the customers that she was already serving, but in a different way. Cicero has been very focused on looking at our existing customer base and saying, what has changed from their perspective and what's going to be new. And so, case in point, we work with a lot of private equity firms, both on the diligence side as well as helping them to improve portfolio business performance. And some of our private equity firms are in areas that happen to touch, for example, healthcare in a very significant way. And so in that particular space, we said, well, what's changing fundamentally in that area, and what would be an opportunity? And one of the top areas that comes to mind is telemedicine. So specifically, how can your kind of local bricks and mortar doctor still engage those patients in an effective, safe way during this environment? This is something that is still a need and needs to be done. And telemedicine, the tech platforms are sort of relatively early stage, but developing, and they are available. But many clients don't know necessarily how to navigate that landscape of technology platforms. They struggle with how to make sure that they can legitimately build those events and work with getting reimbursed for those activities. And so what we've done is we sort of pivoted some of our healthcare offerings to be very telemedicine centric, to say, how can we help practitioners, physician groups, hospital systems to navigate providing the products and services that they provided in the past, but to do so remotely and to still do so in a profitable manner. And so that's an example of one where that would have been a much tougher discussion pre-COVID, but now it's a very relevant topic, and candidly has probably accelerated the telemedicine landscape by a good decade in terms of maturity, almost overnight. Other areas that putting that kind of customer-centric viewpoint on are, and we've heard on this call, everybody's looking at ways to manage cost, right? Well, a lot of clients need help with that, whether it's, personnel, working capital, investments, other areas. And so thinking through ways that we can help them to manage their cost structure in such a way to help free up capital to then redeploy to adapt to these changing circumstances. And then finally, we have another section of clients that are in sort of the space of saying, well, what opportunities is this going to present in the short term and then coming out of this whole COVID crisis? And if they, for example, have a strong balance sheet or well capitalized, that presents a really unique opportunity for them to start to say, how could I, for example, double my business coming out of COVID, and really rethink what that might look like, whether it's through partnerships, mergers and acquisition, or organic growth. And so those are some of the areas that we've helped clients to navigate as they have been kind of thinking through what this situation looks like for them.
And that's great that you've been able to step in and kind of help them prioritize and see with a very clear lens what's going to be relevant and what's not. That's great. maybe as our last respondent here, Davis, what, you kind of alluded to this before, obviously your business needs to make a lot of shifts. I know Questival was typically an in-person event, right? Lots of people attending. Can you kind of tell us about what changes your organizations had to make and kind of how you've thought about that?
Yeah, we've had to rethink a lot of aspects of our business, and one of those was these Questival events. We launched the business the day that we turned on our website 6 years ago with a Questival. That was the first thing that we ever sold, but not even a backpack. It was an event, and we had a big event planned in April that ended up being canceled, and we have Questivals around the country that we've had to cancel. And but our team kind of rallied together and came up with a bunch of ideas around how to pivot. And one of the ideas that came out of this was running a virtual Questival. And so in 2 weeks, we put together a virtual event that ended up being our biggest Questival ever, the highest level of signups and the highest level of engagement we've ever had with any Questival. People are sheltered in place, they're in their homes, they're going nuts. They're after 3 days with their kids, they're like, okay, I don't know what to do to entertain my kids anymore. The Questival allowed people to go do some fun things with either their family or friends in a virtual way. And that was a really fun way for us to kind of pivot one of our core parts of our business. Something else is around product. Our best-selling product is a bag called the Alpa. It is the best travel bag on the planet. It changes the way you travel. You'll never use a roller bag again. It is just a really fun product. Guess what? No one's traveling anymore. So it's a problem. This is our hero product. And so we've had to shift towards some of our other products and shift a little bit of our messaging around that Alpa travel bag, that it's a great road trip bag and other things. But one of the biggest shifts we made with product was actually we had to cancel with one of our manufacturers that makes a lot of our outerwear. We canceled about $4.5 million worth of orders with them and said, you know what, we're not going to need that quantity that we originally needed. But we came back to them and said, but we'd really like to explore making masks. We think this is something that's going to be needed in our community, and would you be willing to make some? And so we actually struck an agreement with the state of Utah where we're making 500,000 masks for vulnerable populations within Utah. And we have another 500,000 in our pipeline of companies and organizations that have ordered masks from us. And so, I don't know how long masks are going to be relevant. Are they going to be relevant in 2025? I sure hope not. But in the meantime, it's an opportunity for us to shift some of our efforts and resources and team working on a different product. And then maybe lastly, we've thought, about opportunities to work with our community through like the One Utah T-shirt that we've donated 100% of the proceeds towards. Giving back. We've also, we're going to be announcing shortly a big collaboration with Utah Jazz and some other things where we're working together, to solve some of the issues that we have in our community around COVID. So those have been some of the biggest kind of innovations and changes we've made.
Oh, that's great. And cool too that you've kind of aligned even, making masks with, kind of what your capabilities are and what you kind of stand for. And I just love that. That's great. So let's get pretty specific here with panelists. How are you actually determining these changes that you're making, right? So, I mean, I might ask you, Davis, how did you decide to start making masks? Like, what was it, like a meeting? Was it like help the businesses watching here kind of understand what you did in that process? Yeah,
so about a week into the crisis, I was that first week, like we talked about, I think everyone was just panicking. Like Amelia talking about how she just needed to recover for a few days. Like I totally resonate with that. It was traumatic. And so a week into the crisis, one of my CEO friends, she sent me this article that was transformative for me. It was an article that talked about how this guy had interviewed 29 CEOs and interviewed these 29 CEOs, recorded the interviews, and then basically broke the 29 CEOs into 3 different categories. And this was after the first week of COVID crisis, right? So there was the fear-focused CEO, there was the unfocused CEO, and there was the strategy focused CEO. The fear focused CEO was consuming 5 times more media. They were just obsessed with like reading all the content. They were using words like COVID-19 and coronavirus and Trump and government like 11 times more or something than the strategy focused CEO. They were focused on words of fear and anxiety and stuff. The unfocused CEO basically had done nothing. You know, the head in the sand. He or she had not made any changes with their team. Basically, was kind of wait and see what happens. And then the strategy focused CEO. You know, this CEO. You know, she or he was focused on words like opportunity and buy, and was talking about things that they had control over. So when I read this article, I saw myself in the fear focused CEO, and I saw a little bit of me in the strategy focused CEO. And I just decided when I read that I was no longer going to be that fear focused CEO. I was going to focus on what I had control over. I sent this article to my entire team and challenged everyone on the team to ask themselves whether they were the fear focused, the unfocused, or the strategy focused associate, manager, VP, director. And together we decided in an all hands meeting that we were going to be strategy focused. We were not going to be fear focused. We had we created a spreadsheet where we had everyone on the team brainstorm ideas. We came up with over 100 ideas that we went through. And that's a lot of these ideas that we've come up with have come from not just me, not just our senior leadership team, but from our entire team. We've empowered them to innovate and to create with us. And so that's where a lot of this has come from.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So literally you send out this article and then you start building a spreadsheet, and then kind of from there that kind of can help inform what you're doing from there.
Exactly.
Great. Let's hear from some other panelists. Amelia, what did you do to determine what changes you make?
Yeah, so the thing we did first and foremost was just like get our clients on the phone. So, I mean, Entrada is like one of our best clients that we've worked with for the very longest. And I've become pretty good friends with Brandon Fish, who's the VP of HR over there. So I just texted him. I'm like, can you just like hop on the phone with me? I just need a brainstorm session with you. And, you know, Entrada is like our perfect archetype of customer that we want. So I use them kind of as a model for things, and I pick their brain a lot. But, you know, after speaking to them and then bringing that information back to our team, we determined that companies were kind of in one of 3 categories, kind of similar to what Davis was saying about the CEOs. But we had companies were either in survival mode, number 1, or they were in adaptation mode, which is kind of category number 2, or they were in thriving. They were benefiting and just had more than they knew what to do with. And so we kind of built out a plan just to outreach to all of our existing customers. And we just started with the ones who are on contract for regular services, and put together kind of a series of questions to ask them to figure out, you know, are you in survival mode? Are you in adapting mode, or are you guys thriving? So clearly if they're thriving, we're like, yeah, let's sell you some stuff. You know, if they're adapting, you know, we have solutions for that too, which is, you know, how do we give our clients services at their existing price point they're used to paying, right? We also realize that some of our customers are going to be cutting their budgets back. So maybe they had $10,000 a month for massage, and now they're only going to have $5,000 for any employee well-being type services. So it was important to me to make sure we had something we could offer our existing clients that had a high level of value that could be received at kind of a lower price point, right? So if they're cutting their budgets, can we still offer them something that has the same amount of perceived benefit at a lower cost? And then if they're in survival mode, it was important that we had a solution for that as well. So when we started collecting this information and talking to our clients, we just determined, you know, if they're in a survival mode, we have to have some sort of free option. So we have multiple clients of ours that have gone out of business already, which is, you know, a little scary and it's super sad. We have companies that have just furloughed everybody, or they've laid everybody off, or maybe they were a team of 50 and now they're a team of 5. So we wanted to have a solution where we could still serve people in that space, and then be there with them, you know, as they're recovering. The hope would be that they do recover, and then we're able to, you know, make money working with them again at some point. But we definitely wanted to have something for survival. So for that category, we just had like a free level of pre-recorded sessions where people can go through, you know, something that's pre-recorded anytime they want, and it just doesn't cost them anything. So there's, you know, we've got like 10 or 15 videos of pre-recorded sessions that people can just access for free. So we wanted to have that for that group. And then if they're adapting or thriving, we wanted to make sure we had options at each level. We also had multiple plans for cash reserves for the situations when it was actually, Davis, it was Friday the 13th in March when everything went down. And I know because it was like the darkest day in history, I feel like, for me. But yeah, we had the plan of like, okay, we shut everything down Friday the 13th. If we never get any more money, all of our clients dry up, even the ones we have on contract, for some reason, we just can't get money from anybody anymore. And we have no cash. Like, here's what our plan is, and here's how long we think it's going to take. So we built multiple plans. I think most of the people on this call probably have multiple plans. And then we had another plan that was like, if we get a PPP loan, then here's the list of things we're going to do. These are the people, we'll be able to bring back from furlough. These are the people we're going to have to hire because we don't currently have anyone that can fill that need right now because it was a different business model. And we were just like moving forward with the current cash situation plan. And then we did end up getting a PPP loan. So we were able to just like jump straight into that plan, which was awesome. And then as we were talking to clients, the last thing I'll say is just that so in our conversations, the first thing we recognized is that the clients we were working with wanted something to swap out the massage hours for. So we were looking at how do we give them some other type of service live in a one-on-one situation, just like massage. So that's kind of what we went to first. And then the next piece of feedback we got is like, well, this is really cool, but our team is really struggling with engagement. We want something where they can interact. So that came from clients too. We were like, oh, okay, well, let's do group sessions. We can bring a bunch of people into a fitness or a yoga or meditation or whatever. We can have like 10, 50, 100 people on a call. Then it becomes super affordable for the company because the cost is about the same as massage, but they can get like a ton more people in. So that was kind of like that's our adaptation kind of solution for them. And then the other thing we heard is that they felt blind, like they couldn't see how people were doing. They couldn't really access their employees the way they wanted to. I know Qualtrics came out with that Pulse thing, which I think is really cool. And we wanted to be able to provide insights into that. We just went a little bit deeper than that to our clients. So we built out basically just an assessment. It's like 27 questions where people just answer these questions, and there's 8 categories of well-being. So you've got like physical and emotional and social, all those things. And so then we can actually break it down and give that data to our clients and be like, they're doing really well physically, but not socially. And because of that, here's what we think would help. And so just giving them more insights into how people are doing, or even seeing like which department is struggling. Maybe the finance team's doing really well, but HR is struggling. So we kind of built out the data piece from all of that feedback. And our beta testers have loved that. And then the last little piece of information that we discovered was that there's like groups of people who aren't comfortable like on camera, which how you just don't really think about people being different than you. You're just like, oh, this would be cool for me, so everyone will love it. So we got this feedback that it just surprised me. And I was like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Some people might not want to like work out with a personal trainer one-on-one and the personal trainer be seeing what they're doing. I thought that was a huge value add. Like, yeah, I can be like, hey, your legs are positioned incorrectly. You need to, bend from the hips or whatever, but not everybody appreciates being seen, I guess. So yeah, then that was kind of where we decided to come up with all the pre-recorded content so that those like people could just access whatever they wanted as well. So yeah, and then we just got our clients into beta testing on our platform, and like we're talking to them every day. What do you like? What do you not like? Here's what's been booked. They have a dashboard. They can see everything, and it's just that constantly iterating, right? Every single day.
Totally. I love this. I feel like, a common theme with your answer and some of these other answers is just how deliberate you are, right? It's like, I feel like multiple times you're kind of like, we took these and we put it into buckets, or we, reached out to people to get their feedback. It's all very deliberate. It's not just you in a silo kind of making these decisions. And the same goes with Davis, with kind of working with his employees. So that's just so great. Let's hear from the next two. Maybe Andrew, do you want to talk about how you've kind of determined these changes and how you've worked with your team?
Yeah, I'm going to steal a little bit from Amelia and also Davis. I feel like in this time you have to be a strategic leader. So I like that. And I read that same report or thesis around that. I liked that, Davis. But to thrive through this, instead of just having the thought of surviving, you have to thrive. And to be able to be strategic and thrive, I don't think there's any leader right now that knows how to do that perfectly. Like I said at the very beginning, there's no playbook for this. And I think for every small business owner out there right now, you just don't have the answers. There's no way to have all the answers. And almost every answer that we've come together as a team to implement in the business during this last 8-9 weeks has been because the team and the employees have got together to figure that out. So I would just say something that we all are very aware of is check your ego at the door, go into those meetings and rally the troops to come up with and brainstorm the best strategic plan to thrive through this and not just survive. And I would just say that our business has absolutely thrived through this. The last 7 weeks have been some of the best weeks in our business. We're coming out of this thriving, not surviving, because of the employee engagement. So I would just say, make sure that you're having the best communication ever.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I totally agree, right? It's like you win together, right? It's not just going to be on the laurels of the leadership team. James, thoughts on this? How do you determine these changes that your company's made?
Sure. So being a consultant, it'll probably come as no shock that the first thing that we gravitated to was, well, what is our structure for how we would think about this? And similar to some of the others on the call, we wanted to take a kind of a structured approach to identify opportunities to adapt to meet our customers' needs. And specifically, we started with a kind of a look at some of the key industries that we serve and looked at the headwinds and tailwinds that this is presenting for each of those industries. And then we began, similar to what Davis mentioned, sort of an idea generation phase. I think we came up with over 160 ideas of how to serve, how Cicero specifically can serve those particular clients, given the headwinds and tailwinds that they're facing. And ultimately, we began a process kind of in a structured way of looking at how can we filter that down to a manageable set of ways that we can serve them. Specifically, the first lens that we looked at was how attractive is the idea from the customer's perspective? So what matters to them the most? And if I'm running a dry cleaners on Main Street, or if I'm the CEO of a big corporation that is looking at maybe doing cost cuts, what are some of the ideas that Cicero is presenting to me, and what are some of the things that, and how interesting is that opportunity from my perspective as a business owner? And then ultimately, we also needed to filter it and say, well, it's great if that's a really good idea from the customer's perspective, but is Cicero really well positioned to serve that in a distinctive manner? Meaning, can we really provide just exceptional value and do so in a way that is going to materially move the needle for our clients? And so it's a mix of how interesting is it from the customer's perspective and the degree to which we can really nail it and help them. And then finally, it has to be commercially viable, meaning all of the above is great. And if we think we can help them and they really need it, then to some degree, we just need it to be the commercially viable. Now, as I mentioned, we're exploring some philanthropic areas where we're looking at, sort of helping to upskill Utah in a way that is done and funded through philanthropy. But on a commercial side, we're looking at opportunities that we think are mutually beneficial from that perspective as well. And so that allowed us to take that list of 160 ideas, come up with some of the hypotheses that we mentioned before around things like telemedicine and cost opportunities and savings, growth strategies. And then ultimately, as much and as smart as we think we are, we're not going to get it right. We're going to have to pause, and we're going to have to engage our clients and have a dialogue with some of these ideas to hopefully spark some ideas on their part as well, and then ultimately listen and adapt to those ever-changing needs.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's fantastic. I love how thoughtful that process is, right? I think I'm sure a lot of businesses hearing this are almost envious, right? That you thought through this so clearly, and clearly, Cicero Group is able to work its way through this, right? So that's just great. Let's do this. Let's have this be the final question here, and in the hopes to even end this a few minutes early, let's give you guys all of a chance to just, say what's the single best piece of advice you could give to leaders that are navigating their businesses right now. And maybe Amelia, do you want to kick it off here?
Yeah, I think for us, it was key to ask good questions and listen, and especially using the people around you that want to help. So we have a board who's super involved. We have a lot of advisors, and people were reaching out to me to see how I was doing. I was reaching out to people. I got more involved in some of our, entrepreneur mastermind groups that I'm a part of. And, everyone kind of started, just entrepreneurs were just like banding together to try and help each other through these situations and solve problems. I think my biggest piece of advice, which I give like in every panel that I'm ever in, is just like using your board and the people who are advising you in a strategic way and really capitalizing and maximizing the value that they have to add. They're the ones that were like, shut it down, like put until you figure out what you're doing, you need to stop the bleeding completely, get yourself collected, and then like also to plan for like this way worst case scenario than I would have naturally planned for on my own. Because as an entrepreneur, you're naturally overly optimistic. I was talking to Jeremy Andrews about that before the call. Like, yeah, I think we're just made that way where we are typically optimistic. So that's my advice, is just to make sure you use your advisors.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. And thank you for that. And clearly it works, right? So it's also sage advice. Andrew, how about you? What piece of advice would you give?
My advice would be, this is not going to last forever. I thought that in 2000, when I went through that crash, I thought it was going to last forever. My life was over. The business was never going to succeed. I feel the same thing in 2008, 2009. This will pass. It is passing. We're headed towards a better future. And, something I've lived by since early in my career is that positivity breeds success. And I think that the entire company here that I have, we have a lot of people here that live on that motto every day. I would say every business owner out there, be positive. Everybody's looking for a little bit of hope. They're looking for some positivity. And when people feel excited, when they feel like the leader is positive, you're going to see success around you. So rest assured, this is going to pass also. We're going to talk 2, 3, 4 years from now and say, remember that crazy time when that pandemic hit and almost killed us all, but it didn't kill us all. I just think that we need to move forward a little bit more positive. So I would say to all of you, just be more positive. This will pass, and be excited about the future, because I am.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah, and I love that quote. And yeah, positivity is really the key to kind of lasting happiness and greater things too. So thank you. James, how about you? What piece of advice would you give?
Sure. So I think that, as we've seen on this call, many of the leaders here are responding to this with a range of skills. One, I would say, would be agility. So everybody on this call has been very rapidly, either through necessity or just their own will, has been very rapid in their ability to adapt to the situation. So very agile. The next one I would say would be decisiveness. So don't allow yourself to get paralyzed trying to find the perfect answer. Sometimes you need to just sort of point in the right direction and go there. And so be decisive, be agile, and then over communicate throughout the process. That's with your employees, with your customers, and really find this as an opportunity to strengthen that bond with your employees as well as your client base. And then finally, just be flexible and willing to adapt. We've heard several on this call mention that there is no playbook. I think Andrew mentioned that, and that's spot on. You have to constantly adapt and be flexible enough to do so. And the willingness to do that and the ability to be really flexible in this situation is key.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I've seen that theme as well, talking to, this group or others that are kind of navigating this, right? Just their agility is going to set you up for success, right? If you try enough things, something will finally work. So yeah, I agree. So lastly, Davis, I have a feeling you're going to say something really insightful here.
Well, I will say, like, everyone that's given advice has been amazing. I've like taken notes literally from some of their comments. So really, really insightful. Mine is pretty simple, which is just, I think any great leader, whether you're a CEO or a founder of a business or just helping lead a business through this crisis, I think what's going to make you great is when you look outside yourself, when you are looking to help the people that you work with and work around, listening to them, asking them how they're doing, thinking as a leader about the mental health of the people you're working with. I think it's about looking beyond your own walls and, like we've talked about, looking for ways that you can give back and serve within your community. And those things come back. People want to support businesses and brands that have given of themselves and that are thinking about others. And so that would be my advice.
No, that's just fantastic. And yeah, I feel like you've done a great job doing that and just kind of adding good to the world too, which is great. Awesome. Well, panelists, thank you so much. I don't have anything more to add. I think you guys put it better than I ever could. So maybe with that, I'll toss it back to Jeremy to close us out here.
Thanks, Jason. And guys, really appreciate all of the great comments. It really has been, it's been a thoughtful discussion. There are a few things that I really love. Number one, you've all clearly been very deliberate and thoughtful around how you run your business and how you find opportunity, and especially thoughtful around the needs of your team and the culture that you're building. I love the conversation around stepping back in a moment like this and thinking about what type of leader do I want to be? How do I make sure that, I'm not driven by fear. I'm not a deer in the headlights, but I have the ability to step back and not only be confident, but leverage the great skills and sort of input from the team. I also love the conversation or the comment around thriving in finding optimism. That is why we became entrepreneurs. That is why we chose to run businesses. And that really ultimately is what creates opportunity, even in the midst of chaos and uncertainty. So terrific comments. Thank you so much. Appreciate all of the preparation and sharing some of your personal experiences. To those who have tuned in, hopefully it's been helpful. And we wish you the best. Have a good Thursday.